Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. The meeting will be starting shortly. While we wait, let's learn more about Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
But is there one up there for you?
Pam doesn't. Pam doesn't have your hands.
Good evening, and welcome to the September 28, 2022 meeting of the Town of Exeter Budget Recommendations Committee. We'll begin by doing member introductions. I will start. I'm Bob Kelly, the chair of the committee and chair of the Water and Sewer Subcommittee.
Chris Suter, Vice Chair and Chair of Library, Parks and Rec, and Human Services.
Kathy Corson, I am on the Police and Fire.
Corey Stevens, Town Finance Director.
Russell Dean, Town Manager.
Hey, I'm Chris Newport. I'm new to the committee. Lived here 2 years and joined the committee, so glad to be here.
Andrew Elliott, Department of Public Works.
Chris Zigmont, Crestview Drive. I am on the Parks, Human Services, and Library Committee.
Oh, perfect. Anthony's on.
Sign in, please.
Street, on the Water and Sewer Subcommittee. We'll share.
Judy Rowan, Prentice Way, Chair, Police and Fire Subcommittee.
Ed Contreras, along with Ann on the General Budget Committee. So.
Anna Grazier, General Government Subcommittee Chair.
Thank you. So as Chris Newport said, he is actually just recently, as in 2 nights ago, or last night, sworn in on the committee. He'd expressed an interest a month or so ago to serve on the committee, and we had some spaces and a need. He expressed has a lot of regulatory experience, so I think he'll help out a lot on the public works side of things. So he's going to work with myself and Ton on the Water and Sewer Subcommittee, which hopefully will ease him in. I was, originally he was going to go with Andy, and the two of them could be newbies on Public Works General. Didn't think that was the best of ideas. So it should work out pretty well. So tonight is sort of our official kickoff on the budget part of it. We have received the budget. Hopefully, I know some of you just picked up your notebooks this evening, but Russ and Corey will be going through the details of the budget and mostly the narrative. And then we'll spend the next several weeks, the various subcommittees, meeting with their respective department heads. And then you've all seen the schedule for our presentations to the full committee. And as always, if there are any questions about various schedules, certainly feel free to weigh in to me. So Russ, why don't we take it away so we can keep this fairly brief.
Sure. So everybody has in their binders a narrative that I put together each year, and that describes the basics of the budget and what increases are out there and maybe some decreases as well. It's a little bit different this year because we do have new people on the committee, so I'll go over a little bit of the overview that I maybe wouldn't go through if you were all sort of repeat committee members. So this is the budget that begins on January 1st, 2023 and ends on December 31st, 2023. And this is a budget process, again, that we just kicked off tonight, and that this process will conclude on March 14th, 2023. So it's quite an extensive process. We do have committee members that do deep dives into the budget, and that's a great thing. On page 2 of the narrative, there is a 5-year tax rate trend. So if you look at that, you'll see that our latest rate was in November of 2021, and that was $5.79 a thousand. That compares to the total tax rate of the town of $24.01 per thousand. So our share of that tax rate is 23.29%. So basically for every tax bill or bill of the budget, about 75 cents, 76 cents goes to county and schools, and the town is the remaining amount of that. So you'll hear a lot about our programs and the town services and things like that, but just keep in mind as you go through, we're actually relatively, I'm not going to say small, but by comparison, we're a relatively small part of the overall tax rate. Values, there's a table also on page 3, talks about values of the town. Obviously, that's a very important number for us. Each year, we monitor that very closely to see what the form is called the MS1, what we are certified as our net taxable value. That determines what the tax rate will be. And so we have not had that certification yet. That's scheduled to happen sometime in the next month. Any questions so far? Moving on to net taxable value and tax rates. We put together this table every year as well, so it's a good chance for you to look at some comparable communities around us and what their tax rates are. And as you can see by that table, our tax rate works out in a very comparable manner to other communities around us. So you'll see the 579 for us at the top. Durham is 786. Newmarket 584, Hampton 591, Bedford, which has a much larger assessed value base than us, 376 per thousand, then Portsmouth is 702, and Londonderry 416. So that gives you a good relative exercise, a good idea. So where are we this year? General fund budget for 2023, the preliminary budget is $21,404,372. That's a 3.65% increase over the adjusted budget for FY22. And when I say adjusted, I'm saying that because the adjusted budget includes warrant articles and collective bargaining agreements that were approved at the ballot in March of 2022. So those have to be built into the new base. If you took those out of the budget, you would be talking about a 5% increase. So, but that's how we relay it as far as mirroring the adjusted budget. The request is independent of the CIP warrant articles. Those total an additional $672,871, and they're listed on pages 19 and 20 of the budget document. And as we've done, and we did this last year, where we are talking about funding some of our warrant articles out of fund balance. We just received word from our auditors that our fund balance is now $7 million of unassigned fund balance. So we feel like we're comfortable in recommending part of the CIP warrant articles to be funded through the fund balance. So you'll see that in the budget narrative. Okay, Mr. Chair?
Yes. So we don't have to fish around for, what's the thinking right now on what would come out of the general fund to be allocated towards the,
So
usually it's around 600,000 or so?
Yeah, there's the 672,000 includes the fund balance funded warrant articles. So we're actually only recommending at this point one article to be funded through the general tax rate, and that's the Linden Street Bridge Improvement Project. So there's $295,000 that needs to be funded from that project. It's something that DPW has brought forward to us. So that's what we're recommending at this time.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you said how much was in the past
In the past,
that you pulled out of the general fund?
we typically would fund, with this budget year, we funded $478,000 through the fund balance, and we had some remaining budget articles that we funded through the budget. I think it was actually another 500, and I'm going to look at the finance director, but I think it's 530,000 worth of warrant articles.
In the past, it's been around 600.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the budget is up a little bit from FY22. You know, we'll go into some of the reasons why tonight, and we'll talk about that. So just looking at page 6, this is the table format of all the different budgets that make up the town departments. And you can see the budget increases there. The largest increases are in fire, EMS, and emergency management, and the police, along with communications, our dispatch center. And this gives the percent increase of all the different budgets. Benefits and taxes are up 49.27%. I should point out, the reason that is the case is because we have health insurance booked into that line, and we've estimated a 7.5% increase for health insurance this year, which is consistent with last year. And that could go up or down depending upon what the rating is from the Health Trust, which is the organization that carries our health insurance for our employees. So we are having inflation issues, and I'll go through that again as we get into the budgets. We're dealing with natural gas increases that are up far and above what we have been paying. We're dealing with fuel increases. We're dealing with wage and benefit increases as well. And that's something that I think you'll be alerted to through this presentation. All right, with that, I'll roll into general government. The select board is the first budget up, and that budget request is $20,968. That's an increase of $332 or 1.6% over FY22. You can see here that each board member is compensated the grand total of $3,000 per year, except the chair makes it a grand total of $4,000. The FY23 budget changes include a reduction in the life insurance line item to reflect members enrolled, and in addition, the special expense line item has been increased by $500 to $3,500. So that's select board. Town manager budget is up 1.45%. The increase is $3,767. I'll say that we made a change in this year's budget where the Welfare and Human Services Administrator, a larger percentage of her budget is now in that department. So that's a 84% town manager, 16% Welfare and Human Services split.
Can you slow down for just a second on that?
Sure.
If you don't mind. You said what? The person splits her time between town manager, assistant duties, and
Breakout by percent, was that
and
right?
her percentage was what?
84% town manager, 16% Welfare Human Services.
Oh, 84-16.
Right.
Huh.
So when we get to Welfare Human Services, you'll see in the benefits section, part of those benefits have been broken out into human services.
Yeah.
And so that's driving a little bit of the Welfare Human Services budget as far as increases go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Human Resources, the FY23 budget request is $180,343. That's an increase of $22,507 or 14.26% over FY22. This is a budget that is requesting a new position, a part-time Human Resources Assistant. We already do have one full-time position in the department, so that's probably going to get some discussion at the subcommittee, I understand that. But the Assistant Town Manager, Human Resources Director has identified a need for additional support to Human Resources. We do have quite a few employees in our organization, so that's not a surprise. But that will be part of the budget process as we go forward. The other percentage increase in this is the budget is for a family plan for insurance for the full-time position, and that's what's driving the 14.26% increase. The part-time wage increase, as you see here, the net increase to part-time salaries and benefits is $7,777, so that's not a large expense. Transportation, the budget hasn't changed, that's $1, and we keep that as a placeholder just in case we have any transportation-related expenses, so that's what that is. In prior years, we had funded Coast partially through the general fund budget, but over the years, we've used our transportation fund to fully fund all of our transportation programs, so that's why we keep that budget at $1. Legal budget is $80,000. That's another budget that we haven't changed in many years. We have contracted legal services for the town. Tom Clausen is our labor attorney who helps us with collective bargaining, labor and personnel issues. We use McLean Middleton for environmental issues, and then Donahue Tucker is special counsel in cable TV matters. Each firm charges various rates, and the FY23 budget has been allocated for at $80,000. So we use the legal services as we need them. Information technology, the request is $331,752. That's an increase of $17,537 or 5.58%. over FY22. The changes in the budget, they include an increase in computer software, that's $5,606, dues of $390, a reduction in equipment purchase of $600. There's another reduction in GIS software of $900. There's offsetting increases in internet services, $1,235, an increase in network supplies of $5,500, an increase in phone utilization of $4,050, and again, as I said, we're seeing inflationary increases creep into the budget more than we have in prior years. There's an increase in email archiving of $1,275 and a reduction in the software agreement of $4,500. This is one of those budgets that ARPA has helped subsidize, and I look at the finance director once, go ahead.
So last year, we pulled about $75,000 from IT's budget lines and paid for it with ARPA. So when we see the increases this year, they're somewhat, I don't want to say skewed, but there's, they're coming from a place that was $75,000 less than the prior year. So he's kind of getting back to, where he should be with his budget.
Is, excuse me, Russ, the software agreement, is that the billing software?
That is not the, this is not the billing software. The water sewer billing, is that what you're?
Well, no, it says a reduction in software agreement of $4,500, so just, I know we have a lot of software agreements.
It's not billing, and I don't believe it's Munis, but I can let you know. I don't have the narrative with me.
I mean, we don't.
Yeah.
We can find out during Anna's and Ed's discussion. We have a lot of agreements, so just as long as we can figure out which square peg gets the round hole.
Yeah, we will get back to you on that.
Thank you.
The trustees of trust funds, that's a 3-member board that's elected. This is a historical budget. It's $891, and what it is a stipend for the chair of the trustees of trust funds. That's been the way it's been since I've been town manager, and probably well before that. So they have an important job, and they do it well. We do have full trustees of trust funds after an appointment Monday night, which is great, and I know that they're anxious to get meeting and talk about our trust funds. Town moderator, budget request is $754. That's a decrease of $377, or 33.33%. That's basically because we're only going to have one election in 2023, and we're able to reduce that budget. Next is the town clerk, FY23 budget, $386,238. That's an increase of $9,910, or 2.63%. Most of that is wage and benefit increases of $9,741, and some small expense increases, including dues and a software agreement, as we've been talking about, with Interware, which is, the software that the town clerk's office uses. That's a $102 increase. Elections and registrations, the last category under general government, that is $12,533, a decrease of $12,470, or 49.88% under the FY22 budget. And again, that's because we're going to have fewer elections in FY23. Those are the general government categories, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I'll take a breath and ask if there are any questions.
Any questions?
Tom? We're just waiting.
So many questions now.
Designated questionnaire.
No, that's fine.
Can I have one question way back from the beginning? So the decision to move capital improvement projects to be funded through general funds. So I was reading this is just because I'm new, the capital improvement program, and anything over $25,000 should go to vote, right? So if we're now just moving
in theory, yes.
If we're moving it to the general fund, it kind of takes the say out of people's ability to vote on an improvement project, and it just gets funded through general, right? I'm just a little confused how that decision was made and
Right.
why it was made.
So I would answer that question by saying not always. The $25,000 threshold isn't an absolute threshold.
Okay.
We budget vehicles, for example, that commonly cost more than $25,000 in our operating budget. This contemplates the $377,000 worth of warrant articles. I'm saying warrant articles because they're contemplated as warrant articles.
Mm-hmm.
So they would, if everything worked out the way the process works, those warrant articles would be on the ballot.
They'd still be there, but they'd just be not through tax, to be
Correct.
through general fund allocation?
Right.
Okay.
And you're still voting on it, too.
Okay, all right, I understand that. It's a lot easier to,
A lot of it's just for expediency.
yeah.
We do that in Public Works as well. If there's something that they need to have done, it's not
Yeah.
a wish list.
Yeah.
Rather than have people vote on something that's critical and risk,
Missing the
a
vote.
backlash or something,
Yeah.
then have to wait another 16 to 18 months to get it back on. Meanwhile, a pump is, whatever. But sometimes it's expediency. So the committee discusses it and decides if this is a true need, then we try to find a place in the budget for it, if at all
General
possible.
funds. Okay, that makes sense.
But if it's, several $100,000, then we vote on it. But if it's 35,
Yeah.
a lot of times we'll just sort of talk it out. All of our meetings are public, and
I think that's a great
I
way
think
to do it.
never had an issue with it. I think everybody's comfortable with that. It makes the process a little more streamlined.
Sounds good.
Good question, though.
All right, so we'll move on to finance, treasurer, tax, and assessing. The finance budget is, and I'm going to give our finance director all the credit on this, it's 0.83% under FY22. There are some increases in the budget, for example, audit fees and bank fees, but basically we've changed personnel, obviously, here, and that has reduced the budget somewhat, not too much, but a little bit, and the reduction in $550 in travel reimbursement, so the net decrease in expenses for FY23 in that budget is $235. So that is under the FY22 budget. The treasurer, an elected position, Sue Penny is our treasurer. That's a stipend that gets paid to the treasurer each year. The treasurer works closely with the finance department, performing cash reconciliations and managing cash flow, weekly cash disbursements, and bank account management. So the treasurer is a statutory position, and there's a decrease in that for $100. We've reduced expenses by $100 on that, so it's 1.02% under FY22. Tax collection, this is located downstairs in the town office, the tax water sewer office, and they collect all the property tax revenue due to the town and also the water sewer revenues. And that budget is an increase of $12,258 or 11.95% over FY22. Again, this is one of those situations where we have changed personnel, so somebody has left the town, and we are budgeting for family plan for health insurance for the replacement, and that's why you see the increase in the percentage that you see.
So that will probably change, one way or another.
It could, yeah. Well, if it's budgeted for a family plan, it can only, if it's not a family plan, obviously it'll cost the town less money.
Right.
When that replacement is made.
Just a quick question. These positions are all still new to me, so what's the difference between tax collection and the town clerk? Like, why aren't those positions the same position? Like, aren't they doing similar jobs, it seems like? Collecting, permitting?
Actually, there are towns that have the town clerk and tax collector combined. We have always had separate departments and haven't had them combined. It would take a town vote to do that. You would have to have a warrant article that laid out, what the reasons were for that. I would argue that they are different jobs for sure. The town of Exeter has a deputy tax collector, which does the day-to-day functions. And years ago, I think around 1985 or 6, the town voted to have the town manager serve as the tax collector. So actually,
you'd be doing it?
Actually, we're one of the few towns in New Hampshire where that is the case. But the town saw fit to do that. I think they were thinking they'd eliminate a position. The town used to have an elected tax collector and did away with it many, many years ago. So in terms of the different functions of the departments, obviously what we just talked about, the tax collection department is collecting revenue first and foremost, and the town clerk is collecting some revenue, but it's not as pronounced as the tax office. They're doing motor vehicle registrations, they're doing genealogy, they're managing the election process along with the supervisors of the checklist. So they're actually quite a few managing town records. So those are just some of the examples of the differences between the two departments.
Okay, thank you. And a lot of the small towns that just have the clerk do that don't have a utility, and we have the water and sewer utility, which can be somewhat complicated.
Takes a lot of manpower to do that.
That's an added burden.
Andy's always, she's always up for giving a tour of the town clerk. I would recommend that if you're not familiar, because I remember when I first started and she brought me in and showed me the records. She's very proud of the records.
A fun tour, I highly recommend.
I'd be very interested.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Great.
She's very nice.
Excellent.
She doesn't bite, I don't.
Just avoid like noontime, that's probably another good time.
Yeah.
Pick your
What if I
time
bring a
wisely.
sandwich? I mean, that
Right,
would work.
that's-
So you'd offer beforehand. They'll probably take you up on that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. So moving on to the assessing budget, that is $241,752. It's an increase of $4,058 or 1.7% over FY22. There is a typo here. The town's contract assessor is MRI. The office is supported by a full-time assessor. Janet Witten, who is our assessor, was previously the deputy assessor and achieved enough certifications to be designated as the assessor. So we are still using MRI for support, but that contract has been reduced by $16,400 a year. So there was a little bit of trade-off between what the assessor was doing and what the contract assessor is now doing. And so that is the budget on that front. So that is the finance area. And the typo's in the second line where it says by a full-time deputy assessor, that should read full-time assessor.
Right.
On planning and building and economic development, the planning budget is up by $10,382 or 3.83%. The planning department is now staffed by 2 full-time people and 1 part-time person. In that budget, we changed hours for the natural resource planner as part of last year's budget. Those of you who were here remember that. And she is now full-time. So there are some line item changes in that budget, including conference room meals, $600 increase, dues, $127 increase. We pay dues to the Rockingham Planning Commission as part of our membership there. And then there's a reduction in sustainability expenses of $1,250. So overall expenses are down $522. I think just a comment on the sustainability aspect, we budgeted $2,500, but we haven't really spent that money yet, year to date, or on certain things. So that's why that has been reduced. Economic development, the budget increase, budget request is $159,929. That's an increase of $6,815. Again, wage and benefits, main drivers there. And then there is a class or a certification that the Economic Development Director has talked about for several years now in the Finance and the Budget Committee's deliberations, and that has been put back in the budget for FY23 because it's not going to happen in FY22. Inspections and code enforcement, that budget request is $285,757. That's a $6,312 increase or 2.26% over FY22. In that office, we've got a full-time code enforcement officer and building inspector, plus a full-time deputy code enforcement officer, and the deputy code enforcement officer also supports the planning department. The department budget also includes a part-time electrical inspector of 24 hours per week. Right now, that position is vacant, and it has been for quite a while, but we are compensating the code enforcement officer a differential for performing those duties. So that is that budget.
Can I interject there for a second?
Sure.
For the newer members, and maybe just to confirm, inspections and code enforcement generates income too, right? Fees that offset some of that expense, is that a fair statement?
Yes.
So for the new folks, that's just, you'll see that later on in the budget. It's worth mentioning.
So now we're on to land use boards and committees. We have several land use boards that have smaller budgets, and they've been sort of consolidated here so you can see them side by side. The Zoning Board of Adjustment, $4,326. That's a 0% increase. That's for advertising, case load, and recording secretary, and also legal notices that are required for cases for advertising. Historic District Commission is $2,825. That's again a $0 increase. The Conservation Commission has a little bit more into their budget. It's $10,089. That is also an increase of 0 over FY22. Heritage Commission, $893, increase of 0 on that budget. And renewable energy expense, we budget $1 as a placeholder, just in case we get a grant during the year that has to do with renewable energy. We have a placeholder to put it.
Just a question on notification of abutters in these land use committees. Is that still done with registered letters, physical letters, or, so you know about that?
I think it depends on the board that you're talking about. I don't think it's uniform across the board. But yes, we do.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on to the police department. This is one of those departments that we have, they're up general expenses are up 4.8%. The general budget is an increase of $154,956 or 4.39% over FY22. The main drivers of that budget are we have our new comfort dog at the police department. So there's an $8,000 request for expenses related to the comfort dog. There is an overtime budget as well that's been put in for to help cover that cost as well. The police department, I would say that the bargaining agreement, the new bargaining agreement with the police is a big driver in the costs that we've seen. And again, I would go back to what I was saying before about when we're looking at our personnel, we found during the bargaining process that we were falling behind. And so we worked with the police union to try to get a more equitable agreement out of that process. So we also have a second lieutenant position for a full year, and that's also driving the wage cost as well. So Corey has something to...
One comment on our proposed, or our new comfort dog. The police department came forward with the proposal, and part of that was that they were going to have revenue offsets. So they're pretty comfortable that the expenses they feel are going to be covered by their campaigns. So just so you're aware.
Like, does that comfort dog have a specific handler, or is it?
Correct.
So it's assigned to an officer?
Yeah, so right now it's going through training.
Cool.
Yeah, I think next year, mid-year, it rolls out to go live.
Great.
Yeah.
What exactly are the revenue offsets for that?
Mostly, almost entirely donations. Those are the things I've heard of.
Okay.
Donations from the community.
They had those special badges that they sold out.
Yeah. Just articulating it for the record.
Yeah.
Okay, so the fire and EMS budget is next. That request is $4,095,817, and so the increase there is $212,722, or 5.48% over FY22. That is mainly due to, again, the department wages are up due to account not just for the bargaining agreement in this case, but also 2 full-time firefighters that were approved as part of the FY22 budget for partial year. Now we're funding them on a full year basis, so you're seeing the impact of that cost. Department increases include also $75,192 for benefit costs, 5.9%. Again, the benefit costs include the additional 2 new firefighters that we've added to payroll. Fire department expense budget is increased by $8,015 or 2.5%. And there are several smaller line items that make that up. I know that the fire department has requested this year to get in on the police department's social media presence, and they'd like to have the same kind of consultant added on to their budget to work with them in the same way that we've had that individual work with the police department. Okay?
Excellent. Mr. Chair? I'll look forward to the conversation about that, the communication part of that.
Okay.
Just put that out there right now.
They did bring that up last year, remember, at our subcommittee meetings, an interest in doing that. So yeah, we'll want to.
I'll look forward to a thorough
take a good look at
discussion,
that.
a robust discussion about that.
Excellent.
Communications dispatch, our dispatchers, that budget is $455,650. That's an increase of $26,331 or 6.13% over FY22. Again, one dispatcher here is charged to the EMS fund. The wage increases in the full-time line item are an increase of $18,457 or 7.1% over FY22, and benefits are increased 2.3% over FY22. This was another area when we went through our new contract process. Dispatchers had been chronically underfunded in terms of our comparables, so we had to bump up their wage scales to make them more competitive. And I just add to this by saying the town is facing a staffing issue right now. We have many positions that are open in public works that have been open for quite a while. We have had issues with police and fire fulfilling their entire roster of employees, so I just wanted to let you know, and happy to talk about it further with the committee as the process goes forward.
So can I ask a question against that? So the budget that's in front of us, do they reflect the funded positions if they were filled, or they represent?
If they were filled.
Okay.
Yes.
Could we get is there a place that shows the open positions, how long they've been open? Is there some sort of...
You can do that. Yeah, I'm not sure
We can
that's
put it
put
together
together.
for you.
Yeah. So if I may, Chris, back to your point, if we don't have it in the budget, then we couldn't go out and find that person. I think is worth commenting.
So that might come back after, if it gets approved and FY23 is over, that may come in as under budget because we never filled it, if that were the case.
Yeah, and you'll see it in this year's performance. That's, yeah, exactly.
You see that extensively in public works, because they're having a real problem.
Can you add to that if somebody was one position was just filled after a long period of, so not just the positions that are open, but also if you just filled one, and it's been empty for most of the year or whatever, that would be good information as well.
What I can do is show, where do we start the year and what's kind of rolled out over the last 8 months or 9 months, and that'll show you the picture.
Right, right. Interesting.
Yeah, I know police just got up to full staffing for the first time in quite a while. They have had issues with that, and fire as well, actually. First time in a while they've been fully staffed.
Just to play devil's advocate on that, so the Department of Public Works budgets for X amount of employees, and when that budget was made, like let's say it was made 5 years ago, was there an expectation on demand, and has that demand maintained or even gone up so that you'd revisit the number of additional employees that you were seeking?
So I know the subcommittee will have that conversation with the department, and you'll hear the story, basically. And again, I would say that this is a fairly recent phenomenon. It's almost, I would say maybe a year and a half. It's, again, we hear these terms, the Great Resignation, we came out of COVID, what has happened, people are, we've been faced with different circumstances in the town than I have ever seen. We're competing against towns that maybe would offer a remote work environment for somebody, and we're actually talking about that internally to see if that's something we need to do to attract employees. But again, the kind of work that we do is not necessarily conducive to remote work, right? So we have to get creative with our strategies on recruiting, which we've been talking about and trying to get a little bit more savvy by using different elements of, like, more and Indeed, for example, to bring candidates forward. But I think it's more the candidates just aren't there. We're finding that that's the real issue, is trying to recruit people when they just aren't there is difficult. So challenge is definitely there. Mr. Chair?
Semi-related, maybe it was already answered. Given the number of positions that apparently are unfilled in various departments, will it be clear to us what happened to those funds that were not? Given the number of positions that have not been filled across various departments, those are wages that are not expended. Will it be clear as we go through our tables what happened to those funds, or will they, or i.e., there should be a relative decrease then in the expenditures within that particular department?
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, and I think part of our fund balance, if you will, if we don't fill a position in a given year, then those unspent funds fall to our fund balance and our surplus. So we can create a document that will show what that looks like, a snapshot of what that looks like.
Yeah.
But that's what happens when a position goes unfilled.
Right, I guess what I'm getting at, and I should know this for the number of years I've been on the committee, but we all know that you can shift money within a department to other uses. So sometimes it's not clear as we're looking through this as to whether or not the funds that were designated, let's say, for wages might have been expended in some other way. I could be off on that, but am I off on that or not?
Well, kind of, yeah. If typically, I mean, when you work for government, you have your budget and you can't go outside of it unless it's like special circumstances. I wouldn't think it'd be anything significant that.
Yeah, I mean, we could put together a transfer analysis for you so you can see what budget transfers.
I don't want to create work.
Well, I thought that
But that doesn't happen with a lot of money.
No,
Am I right?
this sheet right here, these aren't transfers. The sheet I handed out tonight.
Oh, those are just adjustments.
Those are adjustments that have been made to the budget before you even start your process.
Got it.
You know,
Am I way off in my question, or?
No, we've
No, I
talked
think
about this before.
I think
I'm
that's fine.
just a hypothetical. Let's say you have a position that's not filled in the water department, just making it up. But then there's a great need for some device or some other line item. As I understand it, theoretically, you could do that. It's within the department, it's within the budget, you could shift those funds. But sometimes, unless you really dig into it, you don't know that.
Yeah, and the budget transfer process, the department head would make a line item transfer request to the town manager and sign a form that would initiate that budget transfer. But I would venture to guess that have seen very few of those in the past year, so I wouldn't guess that you'd have a lot of transferring going on. I think sometimes you have transfers between expense line items,
right? Because
something
changes.
Something changed in that part of the budget, and that would be more prevalent. We don't typically move wages for personnel to expenses.
Yeah, I just ask it because it's such an unusual situation right now with so many unfilled positions. Then those are large. I assume those are large numbers.
So it's a good question, because one of the things that you'll see this year, it's a little bit of a preview. I haven't gotten there yet, but right now we're operating without a sewer street crew, and those are three positions that are open. And in our preliminary review of the budget, when the finance director, myself, and the assistant town manager met with the department, they had actually budgeted in both places. They had budgeted for the personnel costs, and they budgeted for the contracted services. And we basically told them that if need be and you can't fill these positions, that over the course of FY23, we would fill the contracted services by moving money from the budget that was originally a wage. That way we wouldn't double budget. Hopefully that makes sense. And that is a unique situation. Like I said, we have not really faced that in the past because we've been able to hire. But again, we're really struggling with that street crew issue. So.
Well, and you remember when we had the wastewater plant come on a few years ago, we had budgeted a ramp up of technical expertise that didn't exist for the most part in our existing crew. So we had to bring some folks in or retrain people, and we couldn't find it, so we had a budget for like part-time, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And then the next year was budgeted for full-time, but we didn't hire them until July or something, so you just sort of do what you have to do, but the money's not just going away, and as Russ said, if it does go into the general fund, it gets cycled back to keep the tax rate down or the water and sewer rates down. We're not just stockpiling cash.
Okay, so I think we left off at health. The health budget is one full-time position, that's a health officer, works out of the fire department. This position was one of our key points of contact during COVID. You all got to know James Murray pretty intimately, I'm sure. And the budget changes in this budget are reduction in the education training account of $1,500. Mosquito control has been increased by $1,000. That's a contract. So we need to keep up with the contract by funding it a little bit higher. So the overall increase there is 1.9% over FY22. And hearing no questions, we'll go to Public Works.
Great.
Administration and Engineering, the request is $485,129. That's an increase of $38,287 or 8.57% over FY22. This is one of those areas where there's not a large expense increase, but wages and benefits, we are proposing in this budget for a GIS technician. This is a position that Public Works, assessing, planning, conservation, it touches a lot of different elements of our town departments, and we have no central clearinghouse for GIS right now. It's sort of piecemeal across the organization. So we're looking to bring in a position that would concentrate on that and bring the system into a more centralized manner, and bring some of the pieces of it together so we have a single point of contact for that. And those are I highlighted the two positions that we're talking about, so that is it. There are no other personnel changes being requested here.
What's the status with the director?
The DPW director?
Yeah.
We are advertising right now. And we're working with MRI to try to help us with that process.
Jen agreed to stay on until the end of the year. She originally was going to leave in the summer, right?
Yeah, in June.
In June, at the end of the fiscal year, they convinced her to stay to the end of the year through the budget process, which is great, but there will be some
Pain.
upheaval.
There'll be some pain.
Yeah, I understand we do have candidates, so we have, it's a small pool, I have to say, but it is a pool. So we're going to be working toward that to try to replace her. There's big shoes to fill there, as we know.
Yeah.
Just to put it in perspective, I've served on the Water and Sewer Committee since 1985, and there have been 2 Public Works directors in that time, Jen of which is one of them. So, yeah, we're going to be entering into a new phase in the town's management life, that's for sure.
So we'll move on to highways and streets. This is one of those budgets that was adjusted downward during our initial review of the budget. We were grappling with an increase in the solid waste contract. That's up considerably from FY22. So we went into the highways and streets budget, and we had to deal with an increase in the fuel budget of $8,545. And some smaller inflationary increases in the uniforms budget, but we reduced paving by $100,000. So basically, that's an offset. And we do have highway aid, additional aid coming to the town. We need to have a discussion about how that's going to be spent, because we have $257,000, I believe, in additional funding. The department has put forth they'd like to buy a street sweeper with that. We're having those conversations to see if that's the right way to go, but we're talking about it, so.
That's surprising.
Yeah, I mean, if
That
it
was
wasn't.
below, like, what are we, 2022, that's like below 2015 levels, which was like $750,000.
In paving.
Paving.
Yeah, so, but. Snow removal, that budget, that is a decrease of $185. This budget is something that we can't really predict year to year, but we can do analysis on what our average spending is, and there was a feeling that that was a good number based upon what we've spent in prior years. We also have the Snow and Ice Deficit Fund, and we have a balance in that fund right now to use if the snow and ice budget goes over. So we can, actually has a balance of $153,000. It's right here as of July 2022. So we have a little bit of cushion to work with in that budget. Solid waste contract. The solid waste budget includes operating costs for the transfer station and also the town's solid waste contract, including weekly trash pickup. FY23 will be the second year of an extension signed in 2021 with Waste Management. And this budget also includes landfill monitoring requirements at the town's 2 closed landfills, and the sites are monitored through contracts. Just some of the numbers, FY23 budget changes include the reduction in $37,000 in blue bags. We've been sort of vetting that just to make sure that that's a decrease that we can accept. The solid waste and recycling contract is increased by $94,000. The recycling containers account is increased by $7,000 to account for a price increase in the 65-gallon totes. And we've increased the electricity line item at $500.
Quick question, Russ. The extension that we signed with Waste Management, was that a 5-year extension?
5-year extension.
Starting last year?
Yes. Yeah.
Does that mean those prices are locked in?
There's an escalator annually. And so we do better, under the contract, we do better when the recycling market's more robust. So that is a good thing about the contract if the recycling markets are working well. But there's also a lot of fixed cost expenses, tipping fees and so forth. And there's a escalator for fuel in there as well. So we're seeing inflation impact that budget as well.
Okay.
So the streetlight budget is level funded from FY22. That documents the LED crossover that we made a few years back. We're expected to have this be a level budget in the next 5 years, and we'll have savings thereafter because the LEDs will begin to kick in with the lower cost. We had to make an investment in the system in order to facilitate this changeover. Stormwater is also a 0% increase over FY22. These are expenses that are primarily related to the MS4 permit. The expenses in the budget include contracted services paid to engineering firms for reports on the EPA and the MS4 and the AOC compliance issues. That's administrative order on consent. And those reports essentially never end. They're things that we have had to absorb on a regulatory basis. Any questions on that so far?
Yeah, I have a question about climate change related with stormwater. Is the state helping with any forecasting, or who's doing that to know what will be happening in this area?
The DES has grant programs that are out there to assist with some of these items. The Winter Street best management practice, the structure that we're putting in Winter Street to help us with our stormwater issues, was partially funded by the state. So we're seeing it's like a 60-40 split on the funding, 60% local and then 40% grant. There are some grants that are more aggressive that are 100% funding, but we're looking under rocks trying to find money to do these projects, which we've been doing.
Yeah, I guess a follow-on to that would be, I think one of the lessons we're learning is the amplitude of both winter weather and summer weather. Storm season is getting more dramatic, and forecasting budgets like this, I mean, it would make sense that we have to be long-range planning to see increases in snow removal related stuff and stormwater related things. It's hard to imagine it wouldn't be going up at a higher rate than the normal budget.
But to be clear, when you're talking about this item on this page, and for the benefit of the newer members, I think, who may know more about it than me, but I think we're talking here about the unfunded mandates by the government, by the federal government, relative to these permits that allow us to function as a town. Is that a fair statement, Town Manager?
It's fair to me, yes.
Okay.
The good news is we did offset a lot of the stormwater expenses last year with ARPA funds.
Right.
And to see it being level this year,
Yeah.
despite, I think is good news.
Yeah.
Because this is the first year in a long time that we
Yeah.
haven't had a
Yeah.
significant increase in the stormwater, but
Yeah.
due to, on the permitting especially, so. We'll knock on wood for that one.
Thank you.
Right.
So the maintenance budget is up 5.95% over FY22. And again, this is where you get into more of wage benefit issues and with the new bargaining agreements and so forth. And Public Works is our third one. You've heard already about police and fire, DPW. We had 3 contracts settle in the past year, so multi-year contracts, all 3 of them, which is a good thing. Custodial supplies are increased $4,000. COVID-19 expenses have been reduced by $6,000. And then fuel has been increased by $2,200. Uniforms are increased as well in this budget by $550. And then there's a request that the department has made for $18,000 for fire safety for fire alarm systems, emergency lighting, and fire extinguishers. I am told that that is a code issue and that we have to attend to it, but that's something that we'll be reviewing as the process goes forward. Then town buildings are up $9,432 or 3.2%. Town buildings include expenses for maintenance of all our town buildings and also the utility budgets for those buildings. So electricity and water sewer bills are fairly stable. Again, we're keeping an eye on that because we have a favorable supply contract for electricity right now on the supply side, but we are cautiously reviewing whether Unitil is going to hit us on the transmission and distribution side of the bill. So that's a bit of an unknown right now, so I will put that out there so everybody's aware of it. Natural gas increases have reached 9.8 per therm, and that's a significant increase. Our old per therm rate was about 5.6, so it just about doubled. Natural gas accounts have been adjusted to increase 15,850. That number may look small to you, but that's because we only have so many natural gas accounts in the town, and so it's based on the historical spend and adding some of this inflation to the bottom line.
Mr. Chair? Bob, if you don't mind? So just, maybe this is a good point then to state, once again, state the obvious, but, so our electric rates are relatively locked in at the moment as a town. So this, for example, this news that the rates are, they're going to request an increased rate of 77% for the general consumer out there, is not going to affect us in our budgeting process. Is that a fair, other than maybe transmission fees, or other fees? Is that a fair guess?
The big part of the bill is on the supply side.
Right.
Is locked in through October of 2025.
Lovely.
So that was a good agreement that we made when the market was
timing is everything.
Ready for us to lock that in.
Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome. Thank you. Maintenance projects, the budget request is $100,000. This is a list of projects that we have every year that the maintenance department sponsors, and they perform smaller capital projects overseen by the maintenance department. One issue that we have sort of out of the gate is 10 Hampton Road, so we have to figure out what allocation from that 100,000 is going to go toward that, and so forth. So that's that budget.
I thought we, in the warrant article, had allocated $100,000 extra for work in that building.
We do have some, and so we are, yes, that's
so there's
the case.
more than the 100 that we anticipate.
Yes.
Okay, and that's delineated in the maintenance projects?
We have to get the list.
Okay.
There's a list being worked on right now.
So, okay, so we don't have that list.
Not yet. The garage budget is a decrease of $7,006 or 2.41% under the FY22 budget. Includes 3 full-time personnel, and the major change in this budget is, again, people shifting on health insurance plans. So that's why there's a decrease in that budget. Welfare and Human Services, we talked a little bit about that. The budget request, again, is $183,475. It's an increase of $2,545 or 1.41% over FY22. This also includes the Human Services Funding Committee recommendations, and they've recommended agency funding in the amount of $98,610 in the FY23 budget to support agencies serving Exeter.
Wow, nice.
And I know we have a committee member here, so.
It's merged.
The Parks and Rec budget. Parks and Rec is $624,029. That's a decrease of $16,087 or 2.51% over or under FY22. On the recreation side of the budget, there's actually an increase of $14,006 or 3.6% over FY22, and that's due to wage increases and benefits. So I'll point out too that in efforts to keep, and I'll say this with my tongue in my cheek, but in order to keep our wages competitive and make our best attempts at that, we've budgeted a 2.5% step increase and a 2% COLA adjustment for non-union employees. So you're seeing that in the budget. It's in other budgets too, but again, it doesn't reach inflationary numbers, but we think it's a good effort on our part. The Parks budget is a decrease of $30,093 or 12% under FY22. Benefits have decreased $45,441. Again, that's health plan changes, people not taking the town's plan. Point out for committee members that may be new to the process that the town has an incentive for not taking the town's health insurance program. Basically, what we do is we take the employee share of the premium and we take that out of the number, and then the employee is able to share in the savings at a ratio of 30%. So they would be paid what's called a health buyout, and for the town it still makes sense because we're paying in most cases 86% of the premium on health insurance. So from a mathematical perspective, it's a good program for us to have. The expenses in parks are a net increase of $7,811, 8.6%. Most of that is in contract services, and it's to, I'll use the word, software. It's to create a software program for parks. So that will need to be reviewed. Then decreases are in equipment purchase and vehicle maintenance. Other culture and recreation, increase of $0 over FY22. The list is there for you to peruse, and these are all the different community events that we have every year, and also it's a payment to the brass band members for their work in July. It also supports the Memorial Day Parade and the veterans activities that we have, and the Festival of Fireworks, summer concerts, the holiday parade, and Christmas lights. So, hearing none. The library budget is next. I will tell you tonight that the trustees met just last night and adjusted this budget number.
Have some numbers if you want to.
Yeah, I'll defer to Corey if you want to go over that.
So we'd originally, in working with the library, reduced the budget by about $25,000. Library board met last evening and voted to put some of that back. So as you're looking at, take some quick numbers down, the total library budget will be $1,175,956, an increase of $51,313. And that increase will go to the library services line.
I know we'll go over it again later, but can you run those numbers one more time?
Again, so library services, the budget will be $189,854. The total library will be $1,175,956. increase will be $51,313.
So it says in the narrative there, you'll see that public services was reduced, and the intent of that was to offset some of the wage increases that had been taking place, or had taken place. But like Corey pointed out, the trustees wanted to add money back in, so that's what they did. So I know the committee will review that and make any recommendations you have on it.
And for the new members and for the public, we have no control over that as a budget committee.
Yeah, I understand, I mean, Tom's right. So is there a description without, an exhaustive review of the booklet of what the public services that they cut out that they put back in somewhere?
They do provide a sheet of the public services, and they typically bring it to the budget committee meeting and the process. I know that, I believe people that have served on the library subcommittee have seen that. But as far as like what was cut out, what was chosen to cut out, I think.
It didn't really go that way. So we were meeting with Hope, and we sort of were looking to get to a place. And it was a number, not, can you take these 5 things out and live with it? So,
Right.
So the increase and the decrease may not represent anything in particular. It represents getting to a place where we were comfortable with the overall budget.
Got it.
Yeah, it was kind of an across the board, if you will, just a number.
I mean, we spent the money on a new library effectively, so might as well support it, but just be nice to see what they were thinking about.
And they have a board of trustees, so we have to trust the trustees.
That's not our job, though, Tom. To trust anybody.
Just a reminder, you have a trustee in the room.
Oh, really, Kathy?
All right, thank you. Appreciate you pointing that out.
So moving on to debt service and capital, the budget request in those areas is $1,717,695. And the overall, that's a decrease of $67,139, or 3.76 under FY22. And the two components of that, you'll see that debt service in the general fund is actually an increase, $122,018, and there's a principal payment on the 10 Hampton Road project that needs to be added to the budget from the voter approval in March, and then the West Side Drive design project. So those are the two primary increases that are increasing our debt service budget at this point. And then vehicle replacement and leases, that budget request is $203,683. It's a decrease of $191,393. We've had some retirements of vehicle and equipment leases, which is good. We've also added a couple of things to that list, which are the Engine 5 replacement and the Fire SCBA. So that's what's bringing that number to $203,000.
The other background, I'll throw out the term, supply chain shortages and disruptions, right? So the police department is actually just now getting 4 vehicles, 2 of which are from a prior year. They're going to get them in Q4. So it did seem like an opportunity to take a pause and see how the deck shuffles, and rather than just marching forward with more vehicles.
Excellent.
So benefits and taxes, the requested budget is $731,373. That's an increase of $241,398, or 49.27% over FY22. Again, the important thing to note here is that our health insurance reserve is a big chunk of this budget. And also, we have the workers' compensation budget in there of $262,000, and our property liability insurance budget of $76,000. So those are the primary components that add up to that number. And that is the operating budget.
Excellent, thank you.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Why don't we, if we could, just go through water and sewer, the general budget items, line items, and then we'll do all of the bond articles together.
Okay. So starting with water administration, this budget is up $113,257. This is page 23 of the narrative. And water administration has two main components to it that are driving the increase. Again, first, for the people who are new, we do an allocation of our administrative overhead, town manager, IT, human resources, to this particular line item, also with department administrative overhead. So the director, the town engineer, the assistant engineer, engineering, tech, office management are all, there's a component of that is paid for by the admin budget. The big change here is the $80,000, that's for consulting services for a lead service replacing replacement plan. So we need to come up with a plan to evaluate the lead in our water pipes and contemplate a replacement of some of those pipes. So the other main change to that is a percentage of the GIS technician. So that new position that's been proposed, that is a 60% DPW administration, 20% water administration, and 20% sewer, because we do have the GIS system in both water and sewer. PeopleSoft. Water billing is an increase of $7,505 or 3.91%. Expenses have been reduced by $2,590. We do have wages and benefits changes there, and also expenses increasing in postage, audit fees, phone utilization, internet services, and email filtering and archiving. And also the software agreement for the water sewer billing system, increase of $801. Water distribution, this budget covers the operating costs relative to the system, including meter replacements, pump station maintenance, and storage tanks. The distribution budget is increased by $69,386 or 7.8% over FY22. Budget changes include a reduction in tank maintenance line item due to contracts being a year older. GIS software has been increased by $21,000 to support the asset management program. Metering and backflow lines are increased by $5,000. And here you see some of the utility increases. Natural gas has been increased $3,000, electricity has increased $17,500, and fuel has been increased by $4,900. Water treatment, FY23 budget $938,271. That's an increase of $86,646 or 10.17%. The budget includes one full-time operations supervisor, a senior operator, and 2 operators. The FY23 treatment budget changes include an increase of $8,000 in lab testing for augmented testing under the town's water supply permit. Lab equipment has been increased by $5,000, and then again, these are inflationary increases. Chemicals have been increased $30,000. Then the word that we got on this was that chemical costs have tripled. So that's why that line item is up as high as it is. Natural gas has been increased $8,500, and electricity has been increased $18,000. So that's for both the groundwater treatment plant on Larry Lane and the surface water plant on Portsmouth Avenue. Then water debt service is up, an increase of $135,449. That budget is $1,458,470, and that includes the first year payment on the $1 million debt issue for groundwater exploration that was passed at the last ballot. In addition, the first year payment on West Side Drive Design and Engineering, which has a water component to it, is due in FY23. Then the water capital outlay budget, $527,330. That's a decrease of $26,220 or 4.74% under FY22. That includes funds for capital projects of filter clarifier maintenance of $412,000. That's a new contract that we discussed and was approved as part of the budget last year. And then stadium well rehabilitation and repairs of $60,000, and river pump station and replacement of pumps for another $40,000. So And then there's a note at the end of this budget that there are 2 water fund bond articles that are listed under deferrals, which we can talk about when we get there.
Great.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So that's roughly $12 million for water and sewer. How much of that is offset by the bills that people pay? Sorry for the base, I know everyone probably
That's
knows
okay.
it.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
So they're both enterprise funds, and we collect fees, and that offsets both budgets.
So any increase here is directly passed on to the ratepayers, basically?
So how I would answer that is we do an evaluation every so often of rates, and whether the relationship between our rates, our rate revenue, and the fund balances that we have in both the water and sewer funds, and we use that as sort of as a guidepost to establish our rate structure.
Okay, so there's like a fund to absorb.
The fund can, depending upon what the budget increases are, the fund balance can absorb a certain amount of that. But we monitor that consistently, and we adjust rates as we need to cover budgets.
Okay.
I know that's a simple answer, but.
Well, we try to stay about a year ahead of anticipated increases. Unfortunately, the last 5 years, especially in the water side, chemical costs and just operational costs have gone through the roof for a number of reasons, mostly somewhat regulatory, but also just by nature of the quality of the water that we have as our source water, which is why we're looking into the groundwater aspect. Sewer has been pretty stable, except for obviously the new treatment plant, debt service, but everything else has been relatively stable. But, to just add on to what Russ said, we try to stay a little bit ahead on the rates so that we're not continually changing them. Last time we had a rate increase was over a year ago, and Russ and I, we're hoping that we can go into next spring without another rate increase. That means, again, if people are using a lot of water, which maybe this year they didn't, but
Water?
if they did, then obviously we get revenues from that and it goes into the fund balance. But that's mostly there to either offset, a rate increase, or there's a lot of emergency requirements with the utility as opposed to the general fund. So we like to have around $1 million in a fund balance on each side, just in case of those emergencies. So, but we try to stay a year ahead.
Russ, are we anticipating any funds being available through the infrastructure bill that was passed or the later bill? Have you heard any word on any of that?
So we've already benefited from that. We have been approved for congressional direct spending for the Webster Avenue Pump Station project, so you don't see that here because it's not an FY23 project. But we are due to receive the 1.05 from Senator Shaheen on that particular project, and then the ARPA amounts from the state. There's also ARPA amounts from the state that are coming in for that. So we'll get you the exact numbers, but we are receiving money for that, and we're continuing to look at more, trying to look under rocks for money.
Okay, thank you.
Back to the earlier question, sorry, I don't even know your first name.
Chris.
Chris. It's a good question, and I lose track of it, and it's a conversation that's always had. As a budget committee, we're chopping on the town budget, but we also review the water and sewer, but they obviously are not tied to the tax rate. They affect ultimately the water and sewer rates. Yeah. Okay. Now, previous members on the boards will say, well, it's coming out of the same wallet, so it's not quite a tax, but it's still an expense to the ratepayer. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you probably realize that, but you'll sort of lose track of it when you get into the line items and all of that.
Yeah, I was just going to say for water, our latest forecast for water is that we would bring in $4.166 million in revenue against the FY22 expenses of $4,260,431. So we're forecasting a deficit in that regard. Wastewater is a little bit different scenario. We are looking at $8.7 million in revenue versus $7.396 million in expenses, so a projected surplus of $1.3 million. That could change, obviously, with the water restrictions and the things that Bob mentioned that really limit the consumption. We need to monitor that closely to make sure that those estimates stay the same. So to Chris, back to your question, so we are looking at a budget for FY23 of $4.646 million if it all gets approved. And again, our revenue stream is $4.26 million. So when that happens, the deficit chews into our fund balance. Basically, we have to cover it with our savings account. Sewer, it looks a little bit better. We had to raise sewer rates quite a bit the last time we did that, and that was due to our new wastewater facility because we are needing to make a $4.2 million payment on that facility, and the payment is due at the end of each year. And so we're going to look at sewer rates again because the state aid grant for wastewater came through, and Corey and I were just talking about this today, and I know, Bob, you had a question about whether that money could be utilized to prepay some of the principal on that loan, and that is something we are exploring as we speak, so it's a current issue.
Great. So on to sewer fund?
Sewer fund, news is a little better here, 0.66% overall increase. FY23 budget for administration is $512,470. That's an increase of $34,560 or 7.23%. Same as the water side, there are general fund allocations that are made to this budget. I think the big difference you're seeing is that there's not that $80,000 study that needs to be done on our water pipes. So that is that budget.
Well, excuse me for just a second.
Just pardon me, so the administration category, could you explain what that generally means, what activities that encompasses?
Sure. So with both administration budgets in water and sewer, we have general fund employees that are part of the water sewer. So, for example, the town manager does a lot of contract work, review of contracts, approval of contracts. The IT department supports the water sewer enterprise funds, does a lot of work with them. Human resources, obviously, we have water sewer employees that need support. And then on the department level, there's a lot of involvement by the administrative employees, the DPW director, the town engineer, the senior manager of the water sewer department, and the water sewer manager as well. And so we charge back, essentially carve out an allocation to the administration, and that's what that is.
Thanks.
So also included here in the sewer budget is a portion of the GIS technician position. So we talked about that already. The sewer billing FY23 budget is $196,020, increase of $71.53 or 3.79%. Basically the same allocations that are in the water fund for billing you see in the sewer fund, and the same changes, postage a little bit lower in sewer than water, but audit fees are up $668, phone utilization $675, internet services $206, email archiving $213, and software agreement $801. On collection, sewer collection, the budget's $812,834. That's an increase of $65,537 or 8.77%. The big increases here are I&I abatement for $5,000, natural gas $38.50, and as we talked about, electricity up $23,000, and fuel is up $4,900.
Will, Tom and Chris and I will dive into the weeds on the electricity component here, but just to sort of throw it out there, do you know if this is mainly rate driven or operations driven?
I understand it's operations driven.
Okay, so we're still trying to get a handle on exactly how much the plant is requiring for electricity consumption, because I know that was sort of a wild card 3 years ago.
Right.
So it continues to be a wild card, it appears.
Yes.
We'll get more details on that. Thank you.
So sewer treatment is $1,639,539. That's an increase of $203,000. or 14.14% over FY22. This includes all the facility costs of treatment at the new wastewater facility, and the increases include building maintenance. There's a project associated with this, but building maintenance is up $50,000 for a single capital project. Outfall dredging is up $5,000, industrial pretreatment $3,000, SCADA $2,500, lab testing $15,000, chemicals $60,000 due to the chemical prices tripling, solids handling $30,000, natural gas $10,000, electricity $30,000, and fuel $1,800. So all mainly fixed costs associated with operating the plant. Sewer debt service is a decrease. The budget is $4,219,591. That's a decrease of $85,904, or 2% under FY22. In FY23, the sewer fund debt service budget will include the fourth payment on the new facility. The FY23 debt service budget includes reductions in interest from the from the J.D. Hill Phase 2 project of $18,871 and the wastewater treatment facility of $52,414. So those are the components that we are no longer paying for or paying less. Sewer capital outlay is $65,330. That's a decrease of $175,000 or $625 or 72% under FY22. The sewer capital outlay budget includes $65,000 for smaller capital projects.
Can I ask one more question that everyone probably knows the answer to?
No, go for it.
So when you finish paying off the facility, what will happen to the rates?
Well, they should decrease considerably, I would think.
But that's 16 years from now.
Probably need a new facility.
I think there'll be some backfilling.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But we're all hoping for that day. I can assure you.
That's when all the warranties run out too on the equipment.
It's time for a new facility.
Yeah.
So that's a big item, but what you'll see as you look through the debt schedules in the back is it's kind of a rolling thing. Like, you know, projects are continuing to, so you kind of keep your debt service kind of level as the years go on, but clearly that's a big one.
Yeah.
There's always something new.
It's a lot.
There are two sewer fund bond articles. One is the Court Street Design Project. That's in the CIP. That's an update to our sewer system in that area. And then the Sewer Capacity Rehabilitation Project, and that's also in the CIP. So we have a cross-country line that runs from Finney Lane to High Street, and the department's in the process right now of going through a Phase 1 design upgrade and what's needed out there. That's an older sewer line that is in need of some work. So, I don't know if do you want to go to bond articles now? Or?
Yeah, why don't we just briefly touch on those? We'll be obviously talking about that extensively, but you can just sort of introduce them and give people a heads up on what's coming down the pipeline.
Can I ask a question before we do that? Obviously, the utility expenses in these various items jumps out in the electric expenses, and with all the money flowing from these various infrastructure bills, stimulus, etc., is there any incentive to jump in on solar and those kinds of things, and are there any opportunities to go that way as a town?
So the Inflation Reduction Act has in it 30% tax credit for solar, and we're in the midst right now of evaluating our landfill solar array. In fact, Dave Sharples, our planner, was at the board meeting Monday night talking about that very thing. So he and I can get together and talk about whether it would be a good idea for it to apply. We've kind of focused on the landfill right now, because that seems to be the biggest bang for our buck. But it may be that we could look at some of these other facilities too. I mean, it could be time to do that.
Sewage treatment. Well, exactly. I was thinking when we were looking at that thing, to be this far down the pike, and we don't really have a handle on what the energy requirements really are and what that costs. I mean, it just seems like, it's a prime opportunity to look at something like that, especially if there are at least some reductions available. Yeah.
So in past years, in the prior 2-3 years, solar hasn't looked like a good option in terms of the cost of supply. Like we just talked about, it's 7.47 cents per kilowatt hour. I don't think you could get a solar project that matched that, but that doesn't mean that the future might be now. And we can relook at what the average is going to be. And in fact, that's what's helping the landfill solar array project be cash positive, is the changes in the assumptions that are being made about the cost of supply.
Yeah.
So, and we've been under a contract, like I was saying earlier, we're safe until 2025. So we haven't sort of dived in on a facility-wide basis and talked about solar, but it's a good conversation to have. And I think we should have it.
I know the library's looking into it. Good. Because their electric costs have gone up exponentially. Even though they have LED lights everywhere.
And new facility, Okay, thank you.
So there are 3 bond articles for general fund. There's actually also a portion of the West Side Drive in water and sewer. These are on page 19 of the handout. General fund, the new police station and fire substation for $15,950,000. So that is something that we've had lots of discussion about with the facilities committee, also with the select board, and we're working out the final details of that project. But essentially, we have it done. It's on the website. We have a plan, and that is something that we would advocate bringing forward this year.
Just double check. So in terms of all the things you're getting for that, it's not including any maintenance contracts or additional things related, like it's just the building. It's not like more police vehicles or more things,
No.
Okay, just wanted to.
Yeah, just the building. And there's no new, it's been said a couple of different times, but there are no new personnel associated with this. This is just the bricks and mortar of the building and the appurtenances and the things that would go with that.
Thank you.
It's basically an attempt to move police out of 20 Court Street and free up that for exclusive use by the fire department and better space allocation of those 2 departments. So,
How did this go from fire storage to substation?
It's more of a term than anything else. The intent is that it's fire apparatus storage. They're not having an extensive presence out there. There will be obviously some people, but it's mostly, that's the intent. It's called a substation more for expediency than to...
I think it's a confusing word.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, potato, it is a substation. It's not the main station, it's a substation. There will be equipment out there and there will be a fire presence, but it will be reducing a presence here on 20 Court Street so that they can, use that for other things. As
So
you
it's a
know,
substation.
The facility has been cramped for years. It's a almost a 45-year-old facility.
So it really is a substation.
It is.
Yeah, I mean...
It'll reduce response.
That was not the intention that we talked about.
Well, again, I would argue it's more terminology. That what is being contemplated is effectively what we talked about, a 100% police station with a few bays for fire apparatus.
Exactly. And then you add in the personnel.
Firefighters with that,
Not any additional fire.
But you are firefighters or 5 firefighters from there, moving them down the street, three to hang out with those fire trucks.
Again, that would be an operational we'd send everything around. Hopefully, everybody had a chance to look at it, but...
And we are still having a joint meeting?
Yes, on Monday, October 24th, with the Select Board meeting, again, trying to avoid meeting creep for everybody. It's going to be a presentation by, effectively, Dave Sharples, the town planner. He's going to be leading the discussion, not the consultant. So it will be an in-town discussion with the Select Board, and it would be great if everyone on this committee could be there or at least watch it, because that's where the details of the proposal, in addition to what I sent around via email a few weeks ago, of what is being contemplated.
And Russ. And undoubtedly, the chiefs will be there, and there'll be opportunity for some questions. and answers.
Absolutely, yeah.
Bring your questions, Tom.
Absolutely, that's the
Bring
idea.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, because it's an
Well, normally
unusual
we would have them present to us.
Yeah.
But they're going to present
Yeah.
to the select board anyway.
Yeah.
So rather than have everybody do 2 meetings, we
Yeah.
consolidate into one.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, we would like every question that the committee wants to ask, we're ready to get into the details of it. We've done this already in a few different forums, but
Yeah.
that night we can certainly
And
get into
for
it.
the record, I went on the website and I saw the presentations for the planning board and the select board, and I just recommend that anybody who hasn't seen them, that it's a little bit of a time commitment, but it's worth doing. Answered a few of my questions.
And in terms of, just in case anybody is wondering with cost implications, this project, I was just out at my ICMA conference in Columbus this past week and was able to do some soliciting of my colleagues in terms of the kinds of public safety projects that they're being faced with. And this cost was right in line with what they're seeing. So this isn't like a secret or anything. This is the cost if you want to do. We have a police station that's obviously very undersized for our department, and we've been searching for a solution, so we think this is a pretty good one.
I have a question.
Sure.
And maybe I'm reading it wrong, but what, is there anything in the CIP that, because, the fire's going to be over there, but if I invite everyone to look at that building because there's no handicap accessibility. It was built in 1979. It's in really poor shape. You have to walk up, 2 flights of stairs to see the fire department. And same with the police. So even if the fire department takes over that, with this, there has to be some cost to at least do some kind of renovation. And I think as a town, I think that it is not giving the voter the whole story, because this is just one thing in a step of 2, as far as I can see. And really, in that, what's going to happen to the Parks and Rec, old Parks and Rec Court Street building, because now we're adding not only, we've added a building for Parks and Rec, but, as you were saying, now you have operations, you have to, pay for the electricity and the heat for more buildings. And so I don't think this tells the public the whole story, and maybe I'm just reading the CIP wrong, that's all.
And I'm sure, like he had said, that the budget figure is within what's considered comparables, but like in terms of the details, I'm just curious, like square footage, things that would apply to electrical, and then these, what percentage is going to ensure that disabilities access. It's important to note that if we've identified them, when will they be addressed? Not.
And just
If
the
they will be
deficiencies of
addressed.
the fact that the fire trucks don't fit in there, there's so many things that we're just gonna pass. First of all, I think the fire department, if we look at how much we spend on equipment, we spend the most in town on either DPW or the fire department.
Yeah.
And as we're talking about climate change, and really those people are the first line of defense when it comes to severe extreme weather events.
Well-
So I don't understand that, I don't think that the whole story is being
Right, and I just want to
discussed.
reiterate the importance of the general public, general layman not understanding requirements for a fire department. So there may be, honestly, when we meet with the fire department, we want to know they're firemen, they know their profession and they know the equipment and the requirements, and are they being met? They might not know the unit cost of things. They may not know the difference of cost between, certain building requirements that you just pointed out. If the building, needs to fit a specific truck, the stairs may be different. It's little details that we just don't totally understand.
I think that was probably covered in the study that was done, correct?
Oh,
Yes.
There has been a study, and it is available online. But they've been pointed out, and so what are we doing about them? Because this is not, that 16 million isn't really addressing that. And I just wondered how we are going to address that to the general public.
So this is step
In
one.
several ways. And again, I don't remember the exact verbiage of the email I sent out a month or so ago, but I think I described what the general plan was, and the general plan was to go, this is phase one. Obviously, there will need to be some work at 20 Court Street. Everybody acknowledges that. The general plan is to wait and see how everything works out for a year or so. Instead of jumping, because it could end up being a $20 to $25 million project to do both facilities, and that's a lot of burden for the taxpayers. So rather than jump right into that, we're going to take some time and see how, or the proposal is to take some time and see what the fire department needs. Because right now we don't know. Yes, we could tear down 20 Court Street and build a new building there. And then we're probably talking about a $30 million project. And given all of the different aspects of what we're asking the town to pay, we don't think that that's a good approach. So again, my email, I think, articulated this, and that this is phase one. Phase two is to give the fire department, and the Chief Wilking has signed off on this. Take some time, whether it's a year or 2 years, whatever it is, and see what they need, and then we'll design accordingly and see where it goes from there. Because and to your comment, Ed, about what do the chiefs know about the square footage cost? I can assure you that this has been a 2-year process already.
Yeah.
Judy and Kathy and I met with the chiefs 2 years ago for the budget process, and made it very clear to them that the town was driving the bus on this, not the consultants. So we've been very careful to keep the costs in line, and this is, if you recall, a spreadsheet. Well, you weren't on the committee, but Corey and I developed a spreadsheet a couple of years ago that estimated a new facility out on Continental Drive of around $12 million or so. So to the extent of what construction costs have done and other things that actual design work, we're now at around 16. That's not bad, considering where construction costs have gone. So we're really in line with what has been articulated for a couple of years now on what the plan is for the public safety complex.
Yeah, and it just I wanted to reiterate the importance of it and the size of it mattering and everything, and you can clearly see it's not a so-called eyesore, and it's certainly not. It's obviously something that nobody wants to understate the value of, but insofar as completion and maintenance costs down the road, like as an analyst, financial analyst, we want to know down the road, like overall, like what's this going to cost us to maintain, even though we vaguely identified the end as phase 2 or phase 3. At some point, we want to get this idea of when is it fully functioning, like, because it's public safety, so it's less about the money, more about like the scope. That's why I was saying in layman's terms, it covers everything from paving to, whatever goes into a building,
Yeah, and I just want to point out, it's not new, and again, I encourage everybody to look at what LaValle Brensinger has created as a program around this, because they've worked with the two chiefs very diligently throughout this entire process, and the town planner, again, has been a key part of this as well. And, I would just say tonight, I know we're not going to get into protracted, long discussion, but the plan is to not have any new personnel man that substation, that it would be personnel from our current contingent of firefighters, and that we would have a couple of pieces of equipment down there in order to serve the town. So, and that's been a common thread through these issues over the years, is we've had a couple of different studies that have suggested that that's the space. One other point I just wanted to make real quick is we could not build a public safety facility with today's standards on the current footprint. That may be something that people haven't heard about, but basically our footprint is too small downtown to do that. So that drives a little bit of the process too.
And yet, the fire department was clear that their preferred location was downtown.
Correct.
because that's where all of the risk is. And so that's why taking a step back for a year or two and seeing what exactly we need. Again, what we're trying to do, Ed, is take back the process from consultants who in the past have told us what we need. And we just write checks. And we're trying to change that, that dynamic so that we, as this committee and then as the taxpayers, drive that story. We tell them what we can afford within the various criteria for fighting fires and providing public safety, but it's a collaborative process. So that's the general plan.
Mr. Chair.
Chris.
I'm very much looking forward to the October 24th mashup meeting. That'll be great. My neighbors tell me they're, curious about, this is supposed to be a 50-year project according to the CIP. And, my neighbors are curious to hear what our, how design forward are we? How sustainable are we? I saw a couple line items about sustainability in there, but are we really building for the future? Is it really addressing energy consumption and needs and sustainability, past the current state? Or how far forward are we looking if it's a 50-year project? I think the other comment that I've heard around town is if we move a police and fire facility out towards Continental Drive, what does that do to disenfranchise people that can't and don't drive? There are no sidewalks out there. There are no bike lanes out there. So where today you can walk on a sidewalk to the police department and which could be very, very important to do if you don't drive, and a lot of our citizens don't. What ancillary budgets are required, or are we planning on for infrastructure to support that out there? If you've ever tried to walk down Epping Road or ride a bike down Epping Road, it's a frightening
Well, nobody's going to be walking out to Continental Drive, but I think these are all great questions, and on October 24th, we should discuss it. Why don't we continue on with the bond articles, and we can get into the weeds on this in a couple of weeks.
It was August 31st, Chris. What you sent out?
Yeah.
Was we forwarded to Chris?
I will do that. I can do that. So go ahead, Russ.
So moving along after that, we have the West Side Drive reconstruction project, also part of the CIP, and then the intersection improvements program, which is in the CIP. I'll comment, the intersection improvements program, if that's approved, would end up resulting in the roundabout that we've talked about at Pine Front and Linden Street. So there's also some improvements on Winter Street that we can make, which are lower cost, and that would be part of that bond issue.
Okay.
The non-fund balance, I referred to it earlier, but the Linden Street Bridge project, that would be your one article that would go on the tax rate, and the $295,000 balance of the project, it's actually a $635,000 project, so the balance we're counting on bridge aid, which is in the queue, and we will get it to pay for that. Felt it was an important project. Obviously, we want our bridges to be in good shape, so that's why that is there. And then the warrant articles from fund balance, we talked about that again at the beginning of the conversation, but these are several items within the CIP that you'll be evaluating, and some of the more important projects that we have. Downtown traffic, parking, and pedestrian flow analysis, we've been looking to do that for a few years now. Conservation Fund appropriation, which is an annual appropriation to the Conservation Fund. The Public Works facility to do more design planning for a new facility for Public Works. Parks Improvement Fund, we've had that fund several years now, and this would be another $100,000 for that. Capital Reserve Fund for ADA improvements, that's also in the CIP. So again, lots of discussion at the select board level about wanting to establish some money to go toward ADA improvements, so that's why that is there. The fire inspector vehicle replacement, $49,313, that's also in the CIP, part of their regular vehicle replacement program. And DPW replacing one of the half-ton trucks in the highway with a half-ton all-wheel drive and a plow package. That should help us with our plowing program, and that's on page 50 of the CIP for $53,558. So all told, that is $377,871. Then we have one article, lease purchase. That's to replace our DPW sidewalk tractor, one of them, number 57, Price tag is $177,705. We propose that as part of a lease purchase agreement, so the first year payment would be $40,682, I believe, for that. And that is a really old sidewalk tractor. We have some that you've seen during our snowplow operations. I'm sure you've recognized how old some of them are, so we're trying to get one of them replaced. And along with that, so you have a deferral list as well. Not everything is being proposed to be funded. One is Planet Playground's replacement and renovation. We've been working with the property owner to try to secure the actual site. We'd like to do that before we go any further with the replacement and renovation. So that is on the deferred list this year.
Hey Russ, can I ask you, is that like making any progress? Because that's been talked about for years.
Can't say too much about it because it's a land acquisition.
Okay.
But it's something that it is being worked on. So just kind of like to leave it there for tonight at least. The new groundwater source development has been deferred for at least for 1 year while the groundwater sources continue to be evaluated. We have $1 million, like I said earlier tonight, that we're working through the program to see when we would need that 5.9 million. So it's it's later down the road, but it's definitely something that's needed and we'll be back. Same with the surface water treatment plant design, 2.5 million. Great Bay total nitrogen permit activity for 40,000. It's been deferred. Sidewalk program for 200,000 has been deferred. Fire Utility 1 replacement for $61,986 has been deferred. School street area reconstruction design for $405,000 has been deferred. And then DPW's replacing 6-wheeled dump truck and plow truck, number 33. They're replacing it with a hook lift truck, $75,032. That brings you to the bottom line, the preliminary budget, $21,404,372. The non-fund balance general fund article for $295,000 gives you a total preliminary appropriation of $21,699,372 compared to FY22 appropriations of $29,17,800. And that gives you the dollar amount of the appropriations over FY22 of $781,572, and on a percentage basis, that's 3.74%. So that's
Excellent.
everything I have for tonight.
So, thank you, Russ and Corey, for that information backfill. So just to go over the general process, obviously the rest of the tabs in the budget book describe the general fund and water and sewer funds, both proposed as well as information on previous years. The last couple of tabs go into some of the vehicle lease information. Just as we talked about here, some of the departments, notably the police department, has their vehicle leases baked into their budget, so Judy and Kathy are well aware of that, so just as a reminder for everybody else that those will not be something that we talk about under CIP. And then there is in the last tab, maybe it's the 7, the last tab describes in detail some of the some of the minutia of the budget. So as far as our schedule goes, we made a slight change this evening due to the fire chief not being available at the beginning of November. So the police and fire discussion will be on Wednesday, October 26th, instead of the week after, and Public Works General will be that on November 2nd, Wednesday, November 2nd. Not that it really impacts anybody in detail, it's just the subcommittees are now aware of this, and we'll just flip-flop those two departments. Coming up in a few weeks, on Friday, October 21st, will be our all-day meeting with Anna and Ed presenting all the general government budget reviews. again, that is an all-day meeting, starts at 8:30. The town will be providing lunch. Last year, we were brutally efficient and we're out by, I think, around 2 o'clock, if I recall, somewhere around there. It was a great day. So hopefully we can be similarly efficient. Brutally efficient.
As we can.
So
Hear that, Tom? I'm counting questions.
Pam has sent around the various subcommittee spreadsheets for everyone to look at. Again, for those of you who've been on the committee, they're old habit. Obviously, get familiar with those. If you have any questions, try not to wait till the last minute in case Corey or Pam need to make some updates. But it's sort of the same as it has been in the previous years. For the CIP review, I'm sorry?
What are the spreadsheets?
Haven't seen any spreadsheets yet.
Do you mean the narratives, Bob?
Oh, is it just the narratives?
Yeah, it should be just the narratives.
So I will send you all the blank templates.
Oh, the blank tablet,
for your-
okay.
Oh,
I
yes.
thought those were
Okay.
part of it.
That's on
I
my
haven't seen them yet, just wanted.
There you have it.
Yeah.
So I guess they're coming. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Tom.
So
I could have asked them.
for CIP review, just to refresh, we'll be meeting with the select board on October 24th to discuss the public safety complex, and again, encourage everyone to weigh in heavily on that. Hopefully there'll be, Dave Sharples has done a great job of marshaling through the various moving parts of this, notably the consultants, the needs of the chiefs in the department, using the analysis that we did a couple of years ago as a sort of a guidebook, and then obviously, keeping the town's budget and tax bills in mind. He's done a wonderful job of shepherding that through so far. So we'll hear more about that on the 24th. Then as a committee, we'll be meeting that last day, Thursday, November 17th, for CIP, and hopefully by that time, we'll be so up to speed that will be a fairly efficient night as well. Again, I would request that all of the subcommittees at least broach the subject of their CIP items. We're not going to discuss them in detail the night of your presentations, but give a general overview of what the CIP items are that relate to your subcommittee, and a general feeling of how you're thinking about them as a subcommittee, so that we can use that as part of our deliberations in November.
So, in closing, about the renewable energy money that you said may or may not be coming in, and how come that's not just going to be added to an administration line item? And could you maybe describe what activities go into renewable energy? What impact is it going to have on your staff, and how is it going to be realized? What is it exactly?
It's actually, I believe it's a 30% tax credit on the project. So if it's a $6 million project, it would be 30% payment to the town on that kind of project. We haven't looked at it for operations. It's just been something that we've looked at for capital.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, thanks.
So
That includes heat pumps?
this is the landfill solar array.
Just the solar array.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the budget or follow-up discussion?
Bob, I just had a quick note.
Sure.
For people that are new to the committee especially, there's a lot of work that goes into this binder in terms of the actuals from prior years, so I would just encourage everybody to go through the tab 3, which is the general fund actual, tab 5, the water fund actual, and tab 7, the sewer fund actual. Those have multiple years of activity from 2016 all the way through 2020, and then we have the other actuals from 2021 and then the year to date on the regular budget sheets.
And just in closing, just to try to remember Liz's recommendation, if we could get some sort of discussion on the open positions and sort of what the status is of everything, as far as, we're advertising and what our hoped for schedule before the October 21st meeting, just so we have that information, would be good.
Will do.
Tom?
And I would just reiterate again what I said earlier, which is that those meetings at the planning board and the board of select the select board regarding the police and fire thing are readily available. And although they are long, a lot of questions are answered there.
It's also been discussed at length at the Facilities Committee.
Haven't seen that one.
Okay.
Quick
Cory?
question, Chair. Do you have a list of the subcommittees broken out? Or so you can
I do. I can send those along to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of the department heads were wondering today.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the disconnect was, because I did send those along.
We wanted to be a surprise.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm sure you did. Yeah, just send it to me.
They've been sent along, but I'll send them to Russ and to Pam, and
Okay.
they can distribute them, but whatever.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we've made some changes, and I've added Chris to the water and sewer, but I'll get you the updated list when I go
Thank you.
home this evening. Any other questions? So we will adjourn until Friday, October 21st at 8:30 in the morning for Anna and Ed's presentation on general government. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Adjourned.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast channels 98 and 22. Channel 98 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 13, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.